Alright, why don't we go ahead and get started? It's 5:01. That is probably the promptest feedback starting time we've ever had. Welcome everybody. We will kick it off by making a round of introductions. I'd love to start with folks on Zoom because I feel like we always leave them last. And I know Tommy's making sure they have chatting privileges. So just name maybe what neighborhood you live in, maybe what brings you here, and one thing you're looking forward to about summer.
Your sound is X'd out at the very bottom, Tommy. I don't know if that bottom right.
That's the end recording.
That's
Like that.
That might be so that there's no
Okay.
feedback.
Okay.
But I don't know if online folks, can you hear us?
Yes,
Great. Natalie, you want to kick us off?
sure. What was the thing we're supposed to tell? Like our fun fact?
Something you're looking forward to about summer.
Oh, okay. Hi, I'm Natalie. I'm on my way. I'll be there soon. And I'm on city council. And one of the things I'm looking forward to this summer is riding my bike around town a bunch.
Can other folks talk? Sorry.
Real quick, if I'm promoting you to panelist, that will allow you to talk. So if you want to talk, then accept my request. If
Yeah, this is not like it's not a nightmare situation where you're like required to speak and you're naked and have no notes. Got that.
Josh has declined my request.
Oh, all right, well, Josh, so we don't get to hear from you. All right, well, maybe while online people work that out, we'll go around the table. So Meredith, can we start with you?
Sure, I'm Meredith McCray. I live in Fry Spring. And I'm excited about getting in a pool during the summer. I hate summer.
Tommy Safranek, City Bike Ped Coordinator, and I live in the Martha Jefferson neighborhood. And the thing I'm looking forward to summer is obviously biking a bunch, walking a bunch, running a bunch. Beach is also another thing, going to the beach.
I'm Kevin Cox. May have heard of me. Sorry. But I've lived in town 62 years, worked at UVA for 32, walked across town and back 2.5 miles one way for 25 years. I'm very familiar with what pedestrians face. I've hitchhiked all over the world, all over the country, through many different pedestrian settings. What I look forward to this summer the most is growing flowers and tomatoes on Preston Avenue and giving them to complete strangers. That's what I look forward to. I've never done the tomatoes before, did the flowers last year.
Brendan Duncan, I'm the city engineer. I look forward to moving another kid out of the house this summer.
Hi folks, I'm Zoe Mecklenburg. I'm the city's new transit planner, started with the city about 2 months ago this week. Yay. I am really looking forward to getting to know Charlottesville because I moved at the perfect time. It was just turning 100 and now this summer I get to explore a bit. Unbelievable.
I'm Kyle Rodland. I'm the city's Safe Routes to School coordinator. I'm looking forward to impulse travel in summer.
I'm Sarah Finn. I'm a climate justice policy manager at the Community Climate Collaborative, C3. I'm looking forward to, I don't know, leaving frequently.
Your job?
No, leaving frequently the city over the summer.
Mike Breezy, I represent the Roseville neighborhood. I'm also interning. I just started for the summer in long range planning. I'm also looking forward to leaving for a big fat Italian wedding in Philadelphia in July.
Should we grab Albert?
Sure, Albert Green now the county transportation planner since we left Jessica and Corey, so you know. Gone for nothing.
Promotion.
Yeah, sure. Downtown mall, and I'm looking forward to November when I can wear sweaters again. cold, I hate summer.
Oh, second that.
I'm Peter Krebs, I'm the Piedmont Environmental Council. I'm gonna be real iconoclast and say I love summer. And one of the reasons why is you just wear the same thing all the time.
You should definitely.
Don't.
We're the same t-shirt every week,
You
every
can
day.
wear the same thing inside and outside.
I'm James Van Branken, one of the co-chairs of PPAC. Also, just like summer, we recently discovered the joys of the city pools and are going to be spending many evenings and afternoons lounging by the side of the pool.
Sadie Van Branken, Ridge Street. I am a teacher, and so I'm looking forward to time off.
I'm Guinevere Higgins, I'm co-chair with James, I live in Belmont, I'm looking forward to eating more.
Herb, lady, live in North Downtown, I look forward to folk festivals.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kevin Winchell. I'm the new executive director over at Charlottesville Community Bikes. And we just moved up from Florida 2 months ago. So I'm really looking forward to this. Because Florida summers are not as fun. This is the first time I've been out of the state, living somewhere else. So I'm looking forward to exploring the new places, finding new trails, and doing a lot of fun stuff with my kids. So if you have recommendations on things that 9-year-old and 5-year-olds might like, that adults would also like, please tell me. Thank you.
City pools.
I'm Matt Dalton. I live in Fry Springs. I am looking forward to fall.
Wait, Nat.
Well,
Oh, you're
okay,
not-
no,
oh, okay.
already did some.
Jen Fleischer, I work for Blue Ridge Health District, and I'm looking forward to getting out surfing, but it's getting out of town, like, I'm looking forward to
June 18th.
I'm looking forward to June 18th. Oh my God, so looking forward to June 18th, yes, that's true, exactly.
Do we have folks online who'd like to introduce themselves?
Josh Cart, this would be you.
Oh, hey, I'm Josh. I know most of you. I volunteer with Local Civil and I run the e-bike library.
All right. So again, if I'm giving you permission to move over to the panelists, that will be your opportunity to speak. But the chat is also open. And yeah.
Yes, absolutely. We'll keep our eye on the chat. So if folks want to contribute that way, please do. Great. Approval of the agenda and meeting notes from agenda for today and meeting notes from last month. Anyone interested in making this?
So moved.
Second, thank you. All those in favor?
Nice.
Great. Public comment. Anyone here for public comment? Kevin?
Yes, I just want to share something with you that happened in the last couple of days. I got a message from a woman living with a disability over on the Harris Road neighborhood. And she told me about the situation that she faces on Harris Road. She has to cross that street several times a day sometimes. And quite frequently, the drivers refuse to stop. It's a very harrowing experience. So I went over there and took a look. And I didn't get past the intersection of Naylor Street and Harris Road, which is about 1 block from the school. But what I found was there was curb ramps in place for a crossing, and there is a crossing, it's just not marked. There were curb ramps in place for a crossing at Harris Road and also at the street with no name. This is the opposite side of Naylor, and it hasn't been accepted into the city system, but it's Naylor continued. There are 1, 2, 3, 4 curb ramps for 2 crossings and no marked crosswalks. Now, what really got me was when I went to Google Street View and discovered that this has been this way for at least 6 years. It's a block from the school. Why? It's not on a quick build list. Why do I have to go and make an issue of this which is clearly something that should be there and should have been there when the ramps were put in place. This also happened at Tenth and Little High. Ramps were put in place. It was months before I happened to walk there. I don't usually go there and notice there was no marked crosswalk. There wasn't going to be one until I spoke up. So why is the burden of identifying these things and getting them fixed put on the public too often? Now, I'd like the quick build list, don't get me wrong. It's a great step. I really like the striping on Fairway. So that's all I have to say. I just wanted to share that with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else for public comment? Okay. Moving on. Questions for staff. We don't have Ben today, but we do have Kyle and we do have Tommy. Folks should have received the staff update via the Google group. If you're at this meeting, but you are not on our Google group list, please get with me and James after the meeting and we'll make sure you're at.
I have a question before I forget. Do you happen to know how many people are on that Google group as of today?
Like 100.
About 100.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a good group. But please join us if you're not there. I have a question for staff which is in relation to the quick build list. And had a chance to chat with Ben briefly at the bike parade on Saturday. Kudos, Tommy, for organizing bike parade. And the question was around, we were told at one point as part of the quick build project list and kind of rollout, we were told that there were going to be signs put up at quick build projects with QR codes that would link to a form where folks could offer feedback on these, the interventions that are being deployed in their neighborhoods. So the city could collect feedback. Ben told me on Saturday that that got vetoed by the traffic engineer. I was curious if BPAC thinks it would be a worthy use of our time to actually take that project on, to get the signs designed, get the QR codes up, get a Google form, like something very simple, so that we could collect the data to have an understanding of what's working, what's frustrating people, what more is needed, that kind of thing.
Can I add
Please.
So I don't know, first of all, since traffic engineer is here, I don't think that was, maybe you want to speak on it, but that was above us, wasn't it?
That was a management decision.
Okay, maybe that
not
was,
to do.
I'm not trying to get anyone in trouble, that was what I recommended venturing.
And to your point is, I personally would love to collect this data, not so much solely on like what's not working, but what is working.
Okay.
So right now, all of the information is getting to Brennan, and didn't I see Caleb a second ago? But they're gonna receive a lot of feedback that is most likely negative. And that doesn't mean that's not good data. But I think we're gonna miss out on like other data, which is thank you, or this is awesome, but we should tweak it here, or something to that effect. So
Absolutely.
by not doing it how we intended, there's maybe other opportunities to collect that data.
Great. And Ben said he'd be happy to cover the cost of printing the signs.
Do we have any insight why staff wasn't allowed to do this? And would we be allowed to do this?
I think if Ben says that he's open to supporting you, then you have the reins to move forward. I don't have any insight. I was not at that meeting.
Sure. Thank you. I'd be
Okay.
hugely in favor of doing it.
Yeah, it could
For the
be an
reasons that
extension.
Tommy said, it feels like something that fits well within our role as an advisory committee, as a committee designed to hear from the community. If the city's not doing it, I feel like it should be done, and we're a great organization to do it.
Cool. It could just be a natural extension of the quick build committee that was already assembled, and I was chairing our committee, so I'm happy to do that again. If anyone would like to join me and James. Or maybe just like review our plan for the questions we'd like to put in that form.
it's a great idea. I talked to a lot of people on Fairway who were affected by the recent striping. And most people were really pleased with it, but there is one problem. And that's the stretch between Meade and Caroline. The striping confuses people. It looks like a bike lane, but it's not. It's where people park their cars. So, but it's only about half a car width out from the edge of the street. And so it really would have been better off to have left that off and start the striping at Caroline. And so that's something to consider with other projects, I think. And so there is things to learn from this. You're right.
I know we have that same issue on Preston by the church, the big church across from the park, where it's a bike lane and then it kind of turns into parking, but it's very unclear exactly what happens there.
That's on purpose.
Yeah,
Right.
okay.
On which street? Sorry, I missed.
Because it's only in
On Sunday.
Yeah, so it was kind of, yeah.
Yeah, okay,
It's a parking
anyway, it
lane
is-
that you can ride your bike in.
right,
Yeah,
but it's
Fairway-
confusing.
Yeah, on Fairway, it may be that we need to remove that parking because it's not intended to be parking there.
Right, if it's only.
It was it was partially intended to be a shoulder, because there is no sidewalk in that location either.
No.
So
On that
it was
side.
partially intended that is a pseudo pedestrian
There's a sidewalk there.
On the other side.
on the
he's
other
talking
side.
about.
On the Caroline
On the Caroline side there.
On the Caroline side, there's not.
Right.
There, and so we were delineating a 20-foot travel width, which is what fire
Are you
department
talking about
needs.
deleting parking on both sides? Or just the Caroline side?
Wherever there isn't sufficient width.
That would be both sides.
Well, I think that's good.
But
Just
we
goes
can
back
look at
to-
it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Getting the-
you could submit that feedback.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
In that form, that would be great.
And just like Kyle's Safe Routes to School projects that have turned into concrete projects, like it would be helpful to be able to point to what the community is experiencing with these projects, I think.
Yeah, well, and of course, that whole intersection is about to get a lot of attention. With that.
With the other demo
Yeah.
project through the Moose Safely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you need the quick build subcommittee to stand back up again so we can all put up, design and put up these signs? What do you?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think I'll email the quick build committee and with maybe James and I can work up a draft. And then get folks input on. And then I was gonna ask Josh Cron to design some signs for us. If he's willing to, Josh Cron, did you hear that? He can't talk.
He can't talk, so.
Very good, we're good, Josh, thank you.
I will say you also have somebody here who designs things
True.
and you can maybe tie it back to pre-existing biking and walking branding.
Oh, like Silver.
Yeah.
To that point, I just want to say real quick. I want to give Meredith a huge shout out. If you haven't been to the Bike Seville website and seen all the work she's done, I was gonna say this for later, but Meredith really helped make Bike Month a special one this year.
Yeah.
So
Josh had a comment there too about trying to get access to the chat for the non-parents.
We can't see the chat.
you yeah, I want you to become a panelist.
Only you asked it, Josh. Oh, wait, but Josh is a fan.
Right, I think Josh is asking
But
on behalf.
On
of
behalf of
Fernando.
others.
They have to accept my request. I can request again, but
Yeah,
I think
try to get
the
it.
requests will have gone by now.
yeah.
It doesn't mean you have to talk, it just means you can talk.
No, we would love for you to introduce yourself.
Hey. Oh, and there are more people.
Oh.
Rory,
Folks on
Taylor.
Zoom. Any Zoom folks who have not yet introduced yourselves, would you like to? In the spirit of welcoming everyone? Totally fine if you don't. No other questions for staff?
I thought I'd get a shout out from Josh about all the hyperlinks I added to the.
Round of applause. Yeah, very good. Okay.
Right, by design.
All right, well, then we can keep moving through our agenda because we got a lot to talk about. utility poles, dominion, and ADA compliance.
All right. So
guess
Brandon,
this is
you are up.
Yes, thank you for being here, Ben.
Yeah, no problem. So I'll start off, we've been in discussions with a lot of the utility companies, starting really in earnest, last year. We had a utility summit, last year, a couple of them actually, because it wasn't as well attended in the first one as we were hoping, and it wasn't that much as well attended as we wanted on the second one either, but we have around 15 independent utility companies that work on the poles and stuff around the city. There's only 2 of them though that own the poles. So there's Dominion and there's Brightspeed. Those are the 2 that kind of have their own poles. The rest of them are all just attaching to the other poles and have attachment agreements with those other utilities. So they are not getting any agreement with the city necessarily to attach to those poles. We have no say as to, when they come or, what their parameters are for how they're attached, when they're attached. They do get a franchise agreement to operate in our right of way, but the actual pole agreements, to date at least, Dominion and Brightspeed have seen those as proprietary and have not been willing to share those with the city. So I'll start there. We have made progress, especially with Brightspeed. We have regular meetings with them to kind of move their lines off of the poles they don't own that are Dominions. But one of the issues there is the order of transfer of lines goes from the bottom up, or sorry, from the top down. And they are, a lot of times one of the lower ones on the pole. So, they have to try to coordinate with the other 13 utilities before some of these poles can be removed. So say all that, it's complicated. And it's not easy, it's not quick. I know we had the one, if people remember, there was the semi truck out at Park Street and High Street that got tangled to the lines trying to make that turn and ended up, pulling down power lines and frying the traffic signal and all that kind of stuff. Part of that was they, pulled one of the poles kind of cockeye. And that's been a year and a half almost at this point. And, we're still working with all the utilities to try and get stuff off of there. So it's not that we're not doing stuff behind the scenes, it just might not always be readily apparent to the public. But we have made progress. We've got, I want to say the last time I checked, it was somewhere between 30 and 50 poles in the last year that have been removed. We've been able to get, double poles removed. So it is moving forward. We're giving them a list kind of 10 at a time. We figure that's been more, I don't know what the right word is, but easier to get them to kind of focus and concentrate on these are our next 10 priority and kind of go that route rather than just give them the full 300 to 500 double pulls and say, go fix them all. It's definitely an issue, and that's just the double pull. That doesn't get in to the ADA issues because we've got plenty of those where we have single pulls that are still an ADA issue, and the new PROAG guidelines that were passed late last year got rid of the exception for poles and fire hydrants and other stuff. So stuff that might have even been compliant under the old ADA regulations are now no longer compliant. We're working with them. Technically, I think those are grandfathered in, but as soon as they were to set a new pole, then they're under the new guidelines. So we're working with that. We're probably end up having to, especially with the transition plan, we're planning on having to go around, basically build a new sidewalk around those poles rather than moving the poles. A lot of those, gravity works against them if they just start moving singular poles out of the way. Because the lines have weight to them, and so they start, if all your poles aren't in a line, they start to pull on the pole. So then they need guy wires, they need more poles to hold up the poles, and stuff to if you can't keep them in a straight line. So a lot of these where, there's only one pole that needs to be moved. Well, if you move that pole, you end up having to either move the whole line or something, so that's where we're kind of figuring out where we need to get additional right of way from people, to kind of move around those and provide an accessible route. So all that to say, there's progress being made. It's slow, but we are trying to move them in the right direction. Dominion has been difficult to work with. They're a necessary utility as designated by the state and federal government. So it's not like we can just kick them out for not complying. They're working under a 1920 franchise agreement that has been determined by the courts that is perpetual. We cannot renegotiate it. They're not willing to renegotiate it. That one was, however, that one was made, it was in 1905 or 1910 agreement, 1901.
Nothing's changed since then, though, it's fine.
Exactly, nothing's changed.
It was amended once.
Well, the 1921 that we're under was forced through legal action by the city against Dominion then, so, I don't know that we'll get there or that hopefully we never get there. Hopefully we can get them to work with us, but, if push comes to shove, that may have to be the final straw, is to get them to go through that process to renegotiate that franchise agreement. But they are at least pulling permits now, for the majority of their work. We're still catching them every once in a while when they're not. The smaller utilities are definitely a struggle. All these are for profit. I spoke to, having to move off of the old poles. Well, there's absolutely no financial incentive for them to do that. So, it's difficult to get them to come out and move. They've already got their service to their customers. They're getting revenue. All it is a cost to them to go and move their lines off. So, like I said, just being hesitant, resistant, whatever you want to call it, on their part. Dominion's system that they use to track who's attached to their poles is rather archaic, I believe. And no one at Dominion is really tracking that either. So they put in basically a work request that the next person is supposed to, when they moved over to a new pole, the next person is supposed to move off, but no one is necessarily double checking on their end to say, okay, per your agreement with us, again, city doesn't know what that agreement is, but per your agreement, you have 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, whatever it is to move off. No one's actually double checking and making sure that gets done. So that's kind of the struggle that we're having right now with that. So, and Dominion itself is about 8 different companies within Dominion. They've got they're very siloed, which I've learned over the last year as well. So just in the local office, they have 6 different departments that do work within the city that don't necessarily talk to each other. And they have another 2 or 3 that are more corporate based, that will come in and do grid hardening work and stuff, that may end up replacing poles that the local office doesn't even necessarily know they're out there doing the work. So it's, like I said, it's been a challenge, but that's kind of where we're at. Yeah.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for explaining a lot of that. How, if any, does the city have to stop Dominion putting new poles right in the middle of the site?
So again, we've asked and requested that they notify us beforehand, pull their permits, if they're putting new infrastructure in the roadway, whether it's poles or whether they have to put anything in our right of way, that they're pulling permits for those. So that we can review it, make sure it's in a good location and that they're not just putting it in. That works okay if it's a planned issue. If it's an emergency issue, again, something like, a tractor trailer comes in and snaps off 30 poles, they're not pulling those permits. Like, they are restoring service and they're going out there and they're just doing their work. And so a lot of times I think some of the issues, the worst issues we have are those types of things where there's the one on Emmett Street by Wise, right there at Eric's Road Shopping Center, where that pole looks like it's been ready to fall over for 2 years now. And they went in, put in their new pole, but again, getting all the other utilities off of it has been a challenge, so.
I see. So ideally, Dominion would ask for a permit to put in a pole. You'd see that they're putting it in the middle of the sidewalk and.
And try and work with them on the best place to put that, and if it has to go on the sidewalk, then we're working towards installing sidewalk around it in that location so that we can keep ADA compliant.
Thank you.
Yep.
I have two questions. One, I think I just need clarification. Were you saying that because of this archaic rule, they're allowed, they have an exception to ADA compliance? They're allowed to violate ADA?
No, they don't have they don't have it's just that a lot of the mechanisms that are in our franchise agreement that dictate how they can operate in the city limits are old, and a lot of the modern infrastructure stuff wasn't considered. So they are still required by federal law to do it. But some of the mechanisms that we might have with newer utilities to enforce stuff isn't in that original franchise agreement.
So is it Dominion or the city or both who are in violation of federal law?
That would be a question for a lawyer, and I am not a lawyer.
Okay, that's an important question.
Are
you?
Which is why I am not going to be.
I can answer it partly.
Are you in, okay, so my second question is, are you in contact with any other municipalities where this is an issue? Because I'm sure it's a widespread issue across the country.
It's widespread issue across the country. I mean, you can.
But I mean, Dominion specific.
Right, but I'm just saying, it's not just a Dominion issue. This is a nationwide issue that, you know, this is happening. I mean, I've traveled to Northeast, Southwest, like, you know, the East, I will say, so the fact that we're on the East Coast, we have older communities, we have narrower right of ways, makes it more difficult and more prevalent to have these issues. So, you know, cities that were built in, you know, the late 1800s, early 1900s or whatever, versus, you know, cities that might have been, you know, more built out in the later 1900s. You know, there is a huge difference. Midwest, out west, right of ways are 60 to 70 feet normally. Here, we're lucky if we get 50 feet. And when you start putting in, okay, we need a 5-foot sidewalk on each side, there's 10 feet. And you need a 20-foot travel lane, there's your 50 feet, it's gone. So you don't have space for bike lanes, you don't have space for tree lawns, like where else are those power poles gonna go? So that's really the driving factor on a lot of this, is just where the city property ends and how much we need to put in there.
So just, are you in contact with other municipalities that are having similar problems with Dominion?
Not particularly, no. I mean, we've talked to Dominion about their stuff, but we're trying to fix their stuff here, not necessarily fix their stuff.
Yeah, like General Assembly.
Yeah, like, or just, you know, like a bad, like Dominion doesn't care about people in wheelchairs.
Once they go through.
What
if you don't do about it?
I'm just a citizen.
If there's an ADA non-compliant issue on the public right of way, the city's responsible. It doesn't matter if it's a Dominion pole, if it's public right of way, it's the city's responsibility.
It's still their responsibility as well.
But then that's between you and them.
It is. I don't
It's not
disagree.
between, she asked who was in violation of federal law, and it boils down to it's the city's responsibility because it's in the public right of way. Okay?
So this is a very in-depth topic, but I'm just gonna throw it out there. Any consideration about burying power lines like every other civilized country?
It's expensive. And going back to the narrow right of ways that I was talking about, I was just talking about the stuff we have above ground. We also have gas, water, sewer, storm sewer, other duct banks that are already in the ground. RWSA, which, you know, they don't connect to our water and sewer, they're even deeper. So like underground is crowded when you have a 50-foot right of way. And especially when you're talking about power, that can't just be in a conduit, that has to be in a concrete duct bank that's protected so that if somebody is digging, like, you know, so, I mean, those end up, if you've never seen it, imagine, you know, the size of this table, you know, full of stuff that is running, you know, horizontal through the ground with, you know, different pipes in it. So it takes up a lot of room. It's basically the size of a car under the ground with the pipe. So like putting that in and then also having to get water and sewer and storm sewer. One, it's just difficult engine from an engineering perspective, and it's expensive, and there's not, you know, all that much money that's just floating out there to go and do that.
I have another question, and that is about regulating Brightspeed and the other telecommunications companies.
Mhm.
I think that because their agreements between Dominion and their companies doesn't preclude the city from having a certain degree of regulatory control over the telecommunications companies. I know that they have to meet sidewalk closure permit requirements, and I look in the franchise agreement and I see that there are requirements in there for permits, inspections, fines for non-compliance. And so I wonder what can be done realistically to get the mess cleaned up, because it does look like they're not going to do anything or very, very little. And the mess it's reaching a level where it's actually urban pollution. A lot of it is being engulfed by English ivy and porcelain berry and other things. I know some people now are going out with wire cutters and taking it off themselves, which is a very dangerous thing to do. But what can be done to get this mess? These things are hazardous, you know, they take off bus mirrors, they pull people out of their wheelchairs, they've caused a lot of damage, bicycles have gotten tangled up. There's one down here on Market Street that's been reported multiple times. I reported it last night. It's hanging in the street, running down the street through the trees, and for about 20 yards.
The one at 10th Street?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's still there when I came in today. So do you have any ideas what realistically can be done to solve this?
We're working towards that. I don't know exactly what all we're gonna be able to do, but I can tell you we're working on it.
Hey Brendan, so the permit system, I'm curious, like, is that permitting through your office?
Yeah, it's a traffic
Okay.
permit. Yeah.
Like, that's what I figured, I just wanted to clarify.
I have a question. Is there a poll person? This sounds like a full-time project management nightmare.
No, we do not have a poll person.
We need a poll dancer. I knew you were going. There's gotta be someone dealing with this. You can't.
Somebody Polish.
Someone poll-esque, yeah. Yeah, this seems like a lot.
Yeah, we've hired a new records retention and finance person that is trying to help manage the actual franchise agreements, and as part of that, we're trying to get the utilities to give us, you know, at least a monthly update of kind of what they're doing every month. And you know, some of them have agreed to do that, some of them have not. But you know, again, just trying to monitor where they're at and what they're doing. Yeah, probably could be a full-time job, but you know,
Because that's only the poll part. We haven't even talked about like how then it goes to public works and gets the sidewalk part done, right?
right. So I mean, the ADA part of it, a lot of that is going to be addressed through our ADA transition plan. Part of it, you know, we're looking at that portion. You know, we have to figure out how we're spending the money we've got. Majority of our deficiencies that were in there were vertical height displacement stuff, so trip hazards. So we'll probably try and knock out, you know, those over a 3 or 4 year period. To get that number down and take care of some of those easy ones. While we're also trying to address, you know, ramps and that kind of stuff. And then, you know, a portion of it will go to poles and, you know, going around poles. I mean, some of them are easier, some of them are harder. I mean, we were working with a company, and, you know, when you've got curb line, sidewalk, and a retaining wall, and, you know, the poles there, like, you know, now it's not just putting in a sidewalk around that pole, it's tearing out a retaining wall and doing that as well. So, again, it's.
Or it's
gonna be a
coming the
long-
other way into right of way, and I'll just say
Yeah.
that like that's.
Or losing bike lanes or something.
The number one thing that Brennan, the number one word Brennan hasn't said yet that has probably been my nightmare is the word drainage. So if we're like moving sidewalk into right of way and changing curb line, now we have to like look at changing drainage, which is like its own like nightmare. Question Is Deb that person that you're
Yeah.
referring to? Okay. She's awesome.
Go Deb.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, so like, maybe not so much in terms of accessibility, but in terms of like quality of work, you know, like when Dominion or someone comes in and replaces a guy wire and you know, from the outside looking in, it kind of looks like this probably could have been done a little bit better. You know, they're cutting a 12-inch by 12-inch square, dropping the guy line wire in. Is there any type of like communication being had with them about like the quality control and or B? I know from your side that you get a lot coming in from the community, a lot of reports. Is it helpful to get reports?
Again, yes, because, you know, we don't have, there's not a pole person that we've got, and I mean, we've only had a traffic inspector for the last 3 years, I think now. Which has helped some because they're actually out driving the city daily and they're picking up, you know, more instances where Dominion or other utilities or other contractors are just out doing work without permits and stuff. So that has helped. You know, Dominion has said that they've acknowledged that their quality of work has not been the greatest in the past. And, you know, with you know, pulling permits now and trying to do the right thing. You know, hopefully we'll catch more of those and, you know, we don't have some of the stuff we've had in the past.
Can I add one thing to what you said, and that is, Dominion carves ginormous holes in the sidewalk. 2 or 3 times larger than they need for the poles, and they ruin the sidewalk and it never gets fixed. The earth settles, it becomes a serious trip hazard and an accessibility issue. A number of these have happened since the first meeting where they were told they had to comply with the ADA. There have been at least 2 I know of, one on Fairway and Monticello Road. Why did that happen?
The one on Fairway, that was when I talked earlier about having 6 departments in the city and another several departments that are outside. That was one of the outside departments of Dominion that came in to do that work.
Okay, but that's a Dominion issue, that's not. And so what can the city do to respond to Dominion blatantly ignoring the conditions that they were supposed to meet?
I mean, we're on the Fairway one, our right-of-way agent is working with the property owners out there so that we can go around the pole, and, you know, make it ADA compliant.
And then on these holes, I've seen some tremendous damage, and then it gets left for sometimes weeks, and then finally city public works crew fixes it.
Mhm.
Who's paying for that?
Dominion. We backbill them if we have to go ahead and fix it though.
Yeah.
Observation on the question. The observation is the city doesn't need to encourage every time into the roadway to get more sidewalk. Actually, the curb and gutter has little resemblance to what the actual right of way is in an old city like Charlottesville. So oftentimes you could go into the yard. So council, hear that if there's questions, that it's important for us to use all available means. The other question, and just tell me if this is too off topic, but the spaghetti of our poles and the data and electricity that they carry is a real resilience risk. Like, is the city doing resiliency planning around its data and electrical grid the way it is around flooding and heat and the water supply?
You probably have to talk to, I think the environment, they're doing the Resilient Together plan. I'm assuming that they're talking to them about that, but I don't.
That's a great question, and I can make a note to follow up with them for feedback.
Okay.
I mean, I know on the power side of things, like they have redundant service, like for most of their stuff where it can be fed from multiple directions, which is why there's so prevalent. But
it's not ADA, I acknowledge that.
Well, related but not related, they are the ones that are working with Brendan's office to look at some of the lighting poles as well, right? I mean,
well,
Dominion as well.
they're looking at the lighting citywide.
Right.
Yeah.
And just follow up, like, there's a quality control in terms of aesthetics, but it's also when we spend so much time and effort as a city to put these sidewalks in, and they potentially might be harmed because of the quality of work that they're doing. I'm worried that the concrete, itself is gonna be jeopardized.
It
By
is.
that. Right, no, to your point, but Kevin, I just wanna make that point known to the rest of the
We have made it clear to Dominion that they are to get a permit every time that they are putting a new pole in. Now, whether they're going to pull that permit or not is a different question.
I thought that there was an issue over maintenance, excusing permits and that installing a replacement pole was considered maintenance. That's what James Freeze had said at one point.
Well, again, usually that is a emergency type repair. So if it's an emergency type
He didn't say
repair.
emergency, he just said.
Okay,
It's periodic maintenance to replace a pole, and it's not periodic maintenance, it's new equipment.
that is our stance right now,
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
It's really expensive to put them on the ground. UVA's been doing that. I've talked with some of them about their projects, and I think it's more than double the cost of
Yeah, I mean,
your
we're-
sidewalk project, quadruples.
We're undergrounding the section from
Dominion has it underground.
from Market Street here up to Locust as part of the East High Street streetscape. That is $3.5 million to underground that, like 2 blocks or 3 blocks.
Sounds like we need skinnier fire trucks too, right?
Yeah.
Smaller.
It is not cheap.
Any further questions for Brendan Duncan?
Thank you, man.
Thank you so much for being
Yeah,
here, Brendan.
thanks so much.
Appreciate it. And I guess, sorry, I will add one last question. What could we do that would be helpful to you, Brennan, beyond identifying all the places where we're encountering these things? And if y'all aren't using the MyFetal app, would encourage you to do that. What else can we do? Like, how can we add, like, just have fun around, like, this clearly isn't just a Charlottesville only problem, most likely. What could we do to?
I mean, email Dominion, email Brightspeed. I know for a fact that they have heard the complaints from the public on that Emmett Street one. So, it does make a difference when they're getting constant calls and stuff about, a particular problem pole. So, as a group or whatever, if you guys wanna pick a few polls and start calling and emailing about those to, get those done, like.
Is there a particular person or email address or phone number we should direct these to, who would feel the pain the most?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, there is. I've thought about this a lot and I've talked.
I bet you have.
Who know, and the person to go to with an impassioned plea from the citizens is the CEO of Dominion or his wife. And go to them and know this has been done with the railroads and it actually worked. Okay, they often don't know what is going on at the street level. And you take some of the pictures that I've taken and send them to them and say, please protect us. You may be much more likely to get a response than if you use Brightspeed's contact page.
When you get that person's phone number, please email all of us on.
I'm sure they can be reached.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's a very good idea. A man who'd been a corporate lawyer with the railroads for 30 years told me what happened when someone did that, and it does work.
Okay, thank you, Brandon. All right, Kevin, we're gonna turn it over to you.
Thank you. So, really glad to be here tonight and thank you for making room for me on the agenda as well. Like I mentioned before, I'm new with Community Bikes and I want to begin first by thanking you all because when we were looking to move to the Charlottesville area and learning more about the transit scene and bike scene and everything else, one of the first groups I found when I was doing lots and an unhealthy amount of internet research from Florida was BPAC, and subscribing to the email account, the Google group and everything, and seeing the Pawnee level Parks and Rec, details that happen about how things, how we navigate change here locally and, the politics of everything. It was really insightful to really start to understand how things work over here and what some of the challenges are that people are facing and, how we're all working together to try to address those. So, thank you for allowing me to jump into the deep end with you and learn all of that and be more prepared for the work that I'm doing. So in any case, how many of you, out of curiosity, are familiar with community bikes already? Yeah, okay, you're my people. I figured, nerds. So, we a little like quick primer on us. We've been around for 24 years now. The first like 20 years of that was a really scrappy, not necessarily professional operation run by a lot of volunteers. Just focused on, meeting some basic bike needs for folks who may not otherwise have access to it. And over the last 5 years or so, the team has professionalized a lot and sought more funding from foundations and grants and those sorts of places. So we've got a budget just north of $500,000 now. We were over at Avon Street before. Many of you may remember the old shop there. I know, Kyle, you spent some time over there too. And so now being over at Preston, we're happy for the new digs, but we recognize that a lot of our programming that we want to move into or ideas that we have are limited by the space that we have and which partnerships we have and funding and everything else. And so coming up on our 25th anniversary next year, we're trying to think through what we want the future to look like. And we can't make any of those decisions without knowing the rest of the ecosystem. Both what work you all are doing in your lanes with what you're best at doing to make sure that we're able to support you because we're all in this ecosystem together. It takes all of us to be able to get one person safely from point A to point B as quickly and with as much access as possible. But we also recognize that there may be opportunities or ideas out there that you all are aware of, that you see, that we may not have a perspective about right now, that may not be on our radar. And so I'm looking to you all as people who are living and dreaming this work every day to help our team expand our imaginations a bit about what's possible and what we want a transit ecosystem in Charlottesville to look like. And you all really know this better than anybody else, so that's why I'm here. So with that all having been said, I'd like to get an understanding from you all about what role. There are really two questions, and I put them on the email to everybody earlier today. First, what do you see community bikes as specializing in that other groups don't, so that we can double down on the things that we're best at doing? In support of this broader mission that we're all a part of with transit and to a lesser extent, public health, environmental sustainability, economic and racial justice, et cetera, all these issues that connect to transit. So what do we do differently or better than other folks that we should continue doing and try to do even better than we're already doing? But then also, what opportunities do you see, whether those are for programs or partnerships or location opportunities or strategies, funding, et cetera. What do you see out there that we could tap into and perhaps expand into as we're looking to make some changes to have a deeper impact over the next few years? I'd love to know any of those thoughts that you all have, and I'll kind of stop right there and let you all talk, and I'll take a ton of notes from what you say. And maybe the last thing I'll say is simply, if I want to respect the 15 minutes as well. I want to try to get my kids to sleep later. I'm out in pro se. And if any of you want to talk more, I'd love to just have one-on-one with you. We'll go out and get lunch or something and chat for a couple of hours about ideas you have and everything else too. So please educate me.
I'm also taking notes, so you can just listen and then I'll send them to you. Yeah.
So let me go though, can you tell us what Community Bike's vision is or its mission
Sure.
right now? If it's,
Yeah. Oh, good question. So, we want to make sure that there are as few barriers to entry for people who need to get from one place to the other. And we do that specifically through giving people access to bicycles for free. So last year we received right around 2,000 bikes donated to us. And our team of mechanics, we have about 7, 8 people on staff now, most of whom are mechanics. They fix up bikes to really high quality, bike shop level of quality. And of the 2,000 bikes we had donated, we gave out about 1,500 of those for free last year to people who are here in the Charlottesville community. About 1,000 of those were bikes for kids. And about 400 or so of those were bikes for adults who need them to get to work or to, school or doctor's appointments or whatever else. Any bikes that we receive through donations that still look really good and look like new and have great paint and everything, we'll refurbish those as well, get them to a really good point, and we'll sell those to help fund our operations. We get about a third of our budget comes from shop sales, where we're selling used bikes. We're the only used bike shop in Charlottesville. About 2/3 of our budget comes from grants, donors, foundations, and groups like those. And any bikes that we absolutely cannot fix up to a level to sell to somebody else, or certainly to give away to somebody else, we'll salvage those for parts and take as much as we can off of them. And then we work with someone who scraps them so that they stay out of a landfill and they get recycled in some sort of way. So trying to, limit our environmental impacts as well by reusing. Yeah, Peter.
So I think it's laudable that you see yourselves as vanguard on the transportation space and getting people to work and all of that. That's quite important. But you're not the only provider of bicycles in Charlottesville, and you're not even the only provider of free bicycles in Charlottesville, right? Like Craigslist, for example. But what you do that is pretty unique is the way that you help people get in touch with their own ability to be self-sufficient. And that is, almost as important as the transportation piece. And so definitely don't, lose that. So it wouldn't be, we talked about alternative places to work. Mm-hmm. It wouldn't be a win for you guys to lose your sketchy basement and have a nice showroom, and that's your interaction with the public, and the magic happens with your mechanics in some off-site location, right? Like the getting your hands dirty and your ability, like you guys used to share a space with the Quality Communities Council that led to all the community gardens we have in Charlottesville. Yeah. Every one of them had its birthplace in that Avon shop too. Okay. And that kind of synergy is really important.
Can I just add in via question, Kevin? When you said 400 bikes were given away to for free to people who needed them for transportation to get to work, was that all through the bike referral program?
Correct.
So just, you want to give a little bit more information on that?
So we recognize we're not social workers, nor do we have the competencies to be able to ascertain whether someone needs a bike or not. We don't do means testing or anything. We rely on partnerships with around 30 nonprofit and government organizations in the area who have clients who we give them a certain number of bikes per month that they're able to request for clients. And so they vet clients and let us know who needs a bike, and then we measure them and figure out what they want to use the bikes for. And we look through our inventory and find something that'll work for them. And we attempt to have a 2-week turnaround time max to get that bike to that person who needs it.
And one of the reasons why I wanted to make that point for everybody is I recently had a meeting with the social services in Jobtown Down Center about that sister e-bike voucher program we've been talking about that would target the communities that can't afford an e-bike even if they get a $1,000 voucher. And we were talking about the process that they go through identifying those clients that would be best served by a bike and how they might modify that for an e-bike. So again, relying on those partnerships is going to be key, and we're looking at your program and how to replicate it moving forward. Cool, thank you.
One thing that I love about community bikes, and I say that as a parent, is that a number of my child's bikes over the years came from community bikes, and anyone with a child under the age of 12 can just get a free bike. Like you just show up and they fit you out in a bike that they have, and it's awesome. And I love that spirit of like, there's no barrier to access. And while I understand that, there could be very good reasons why some folks need to be vetted, I'm also like, what if community bikes had that as their kind of principle for anyone who needs a bike? There's no barrier to entry. And you just let people know that, hey, if your income is such and such, this is what you could pay for this bike, or a suggested donation. And if you can't, then you just get the bike. Like there's to kind of remove some of those hurdles of like kind of matching people and pairing people, and some of the challenges of like means testing, which while well-intentioned are also like are barriers. So I just would offer that. Because I think it's one of your greatest strengths, that it's like you just roll in there with your kid and like, and the other thing that I think is a huge strength of community bikes that I would not want to lose, and kind of Peter was kind of alluding to this, is like there's so much joy in the process of picking out a bike with your kid, of like going in there and having these like super helpful, really quirky bike nerds help you out. So just the joy, and I'm on team joy for biking, like period, end of story. I feel like that's like number one reason for a lot of folks to just, and of course there's lots of other good reasons too, that joy should always be at the top.
Thank you.
I have tons of thoughts. We should call me soon.
Okay. Anything you want to share right now? The answer is yes.
Not specifically right now. Sorry. You'll have to wait.
Yeah, is there
I did volunteer there for a while and I work at BRC. So there's a lot of like political, social, financial things that I'm gonna talk about.
Okay, I'm in.
Kind of off of her question, I'm just wondering, like, how many adult bikes are you selling that are used bikes are you kind of fixing up and reselling? If you're giving away 400, are you selling another 500? Are you selling 1,000? Are you selling 2,000?
Last year, we sold about 350 or so bikes. And those would range from anywhere from around $250 to $2,000 or so. Usually these would come about a third or so of the price that they would cost at a retail shop. Something we've been very careful about is making sure that we carve out a lane that is separate from our local businesses that sell bikes, so that we're not cannibalizing their business. We're trying to position ourselves as the on-ramp to get them interested in cycling, to make it accessible. And then when they really want to get more serious about it and they have the means to do so, then they're able to go to Blue Ridge or Endeavor or wherever else and, get something that's newer and of, the top quality and everything else. So we try to maintain a really positive relationship with them and be that on-ramp for everybody.
But it's also like, I bought a bike and donated two, like you're getting that same, the wholesaling of the purchases. Yeah, like I traded in two and bought one, so
I love
like
it too.
you're, I mean, it's what happens, you get in there and you're like, please take these bikes off my hand, and I need a new bike, like, so.
No, I guess I was asking the question more because it seems like if just to open it up to anybody who needs a bike as an adult, like it's not like we're talking like
thousands of people.
Right, we're not talking thousands of people. It seems like, especially if you limit it of like your free ones are still your low end ones, you can leave the $1,000 and $2,000 bikes as for sale, but if somebody just needs a bike and they come in, it might only be another 100 people on top of the 400 you were serving.
Or a pay what you can model, like often.
Right, yeah, I mean, I know.
Generate more revenue.
I know with my kids' fundraisers and stuff, a lot of times for your car wash, you're much better off just putting a donate what you can rather than saying, oh, we expect $5 or we expect $10 or whatever. You'll get people that come in and, here's $200 for washing my car. So, you definitely
probably if you just said.
Do a car wash.
No, I'm not saying a car, but it's the same model, like it's
Bike wash.
but a bike, there you
Oh
go.
my God, I have a number on that. Yeah, your buckets.
But no, just the model of just being like, hey, we're making this free, but this is we are a service to the community. And like, if you can donate, please do. You know, that type of thing might get you more than you would actually get selling those cheap bikes that you're selling right now.
Sure.
Yes, well, I was just gonna ask Kevin to maybe speak on some of the programming that you do as well. I know some of it, but there's probably some I don't know. I'm specifically thinking about what you do at Southwood.
Sure. Yeah, so recognizing that our shop has a physical location that can't be moved to get closer to people who might need bikes. 2 years ago, we started doing mobile clinics where we load up our van and our trailer with a ton of bikes and maintenance gear and everything else, and go out to different neighborhoods with whom we have connections with. There's like a resource center or a nonprofit organization that runs a neighborhood association or something like that, and set up a time in that community where we give out a ton of bikes, where we ask people to bring in their bikes so we can fix them up on the spot, especially if they don't otherwise have the ability to get to our bike shop, you know, because of our geography or because of our hours or something else. So oftentimes we try to partner with other organizations that are going in, so we can try to provide as many wraparound services as possible. And that way we're all able to kind of synergize with each other, and they might come for the book bus, but they might stay because we're also able to pick up their bike at the same time, or vice versa. They come for the bikes, but then they leave with some books too. You know, figuring how we can layer more services on top of each other so that there are more on ramps to then get to even more resources for folks. And you know, that's certainly a model that we want to replicate and expand even more as we're able to grow staffing and volunteers.
Got two more lifts.
Do you have any?
Oh, I just wanted to add too that there's maybe a gap in between like the bikes that are being offered for free and the like $250 maybe starting range of a bike that you can purchase. And I'm curious, you know, I don't really know the answer, but to what extent there are people in that middle range of like, I want a bike, but I'm not able to spend $500 on it, or even $250, but also maybe I'm not connected to these social services groups. I just am curious what the future could look like if there's a way to.
Yeah. So if you've ever seen this in action, especially with Todd in our shop, he likes to. I've been learning a lot in my new employee orientation over the last 2 months. And something Todd told me is that we don't negotiate with people. If they end up saying like they can do this amount, then our not negotiation is simply we accept that and go with it. So if they say, like, we were just in the shop the other day, there was a person who found the perfect bike for them, and it was listed like $425. She said, I've got $280 right now. He said, that'll work. And so we took that. And if we see that somebody can't afford something for $250, I've seen us before too. We just kind of, we can make ourselves a referral organization. There's some liabilities with that, and you know, it gets a little screwy on the accounting side, but I'm learning to be pretty creative with all of that in QuickBooks. We can make ourselves a referral organization and just comp the bike to them as well. So, you know, and if we have a chance to talk to the person and get to understand their circumstance a little bit more, we can figure it out. And ultimately, we don't want anyone to be turned away without something that they need, or at least a solid plan in place to get them what they need within 2 weeks.
Yeah, I wonder what that could look like. I love that. And I wonder, this is obviously a difficult messaging problem, but how to kind of put that out there to the wider community in a way that doesn't make it sound like just come grab bikes from us and we don't care.
What our concern is that we want to try to have a 2-week turnaround time on everything. And when we open it up more, then the wait list gets longer, and then people are waiting 2 months to be able to get something. And then bad things start happening and they lose some faith in it. So that's the balancing act that we're trying to drive right now. Yeah.
Hearing you talk about the mission and removing barriers, right? And having some personal experience being at community bikes in the past. And then, so hearing you say that, and then hearing you talk about becoming a self-referring organization, you know, as like whatever magic happens behind the scenes is whatever. But I think just kind of throwing this out there as like an idea, going back to the beginning of the conversation of what is the mission of it, what's the future of community bikes and where does it fit in and what can it do more and things like that. And, you know, as the organization grows or strives to grow, there is the potential for the organization to be self-referring in a way. And potentially have somebody who, and you know, like you said earlier, like community bikes isn't qualified to vet somebody or to say who can or cannot have a bike. That's the whole reason behind the voucher program, right? But maybe in the future, community bikes could be qualified to do that. Because I've seen many times people do come into the shop, and even though there are ways to be a self-referring organization currently, it's not always something that happens, and that could be a potential barrier, you know, or a potential extra step for someone to come and say, hey, how do I get a bike for free? Oh, go talk to these people.
Sure.
Right. So just a little piece of maybe there's some potential for something like that in the future.
Thank you.
I would love to add to that. I think we are very interested on BPAC in, you know, there's like people who show up around this table on the first Thursday of the month, and we might make assumptions about their interests and their backgrounds, and we don't often get to hear from people who don't show up around this table on the first Thursday of the month. And so any feedback that you can offer us around what folks who utilize your bikes experience as fellow bikers out there in Charlottesville, I think would be really useful to us, or for us to know about. So we can be thinking more holistically about how to best advocate with the city.
Absolutely. And I plan to regularly attend going forward. So as I hear things in the shop and I hear from clinics and clients and everything, I'll make sure to bring that back to everybody.
Thank you. Thanks so much. All right.
Who would like to talk more at some point? Yeah. Okay. What was your name again?
Jen.
Jen, cool. Hey, Jen.
Hi.
You're cool.
Okay.
Thanks. Chicken bake.
All right. Cool.
We're gonna have a meeting in some.
Yeah.
We're on our third attempt of scheduling a meeting.
Yeah.
With city between us and you guys, but we'll get there.
It will happen.
It will.
Tommy's informed me this next agenda item is gonna be very quick. It is an update on the contract renewal with VO.
Yeah, I felt like there was somebody else that had a hand raised for Kevin at some point.
I did, but I'll email it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so VO, currently, there is a draft, a new permit for VO, draft form with the city attorney's office. Once they reviewed it, we're gonna provide it to VO, and we can probably, have it for you guys to review, as well at our, I haven't put much thought into this. Maybe the best mechanism is to share it via email? Or what do you guys think is the best mechanism to?
What's the?
I was gonna say, yeah, do you want the?
Yeah, I don't know, I haven't had a
access to
chance.
your-
Well, let me give, so we sent it to our attorney's office. They were reviewing it yesterday. So maybe I'll follow up with them and then I'll reply back to you and James and we'll figure out the best mechanism. But if there are certain things that you all want to say now during this time that you think would be appropriate, have at it.
Just to suggest like what's under discussion. And also I maybe check with the attorneys whether you email it or bring it to a meeting, it's then public, and I'm not sure if draft legal documents should be public. But anyway.
Yeah, I guess I'll confirm, but I guess my viewpoint is if I'm sharing it with VO, then at that point it's public. Does that make sense? Because if I'm sharing it with an entity, because anybody could apply for this permit, but I can confirm.
So what's under discussion?
In terms of the permit,
Or
far
what
as new
feedback
things
do you
or-
want?
Yeah, new things.
yeah, I guess I'm open to hearing what anyone wants to say.
No, but what's in the draft? Like what?
But what I'm saying is, I'm not gonna answer that if what the attorney
Oh, I see. what you're
is,
saying. Okay.
if we gotta get confirmation on the attorney, if I'm gonna share it, I'm gonna share it.
Oh, I
Either
see.
written
Yeah,
written form or
yeah,
verbal.
sorry, got it.
For somebody to
So-
hear what's on our minds.
So,
You're more like, what do you want from me?
Any
Yeah,
thoughts on
okay,
the-
Yeah.
got it, sorry,
Oh, boy.
I misunderstood.
You thought this was a short agenda.
Yeah. We did talk about
Kevin,
this.
go ahead.
Tommy, you can't give us any idea of what kind of changes you're considering in the relationship with VO? Will the fines change? Will, what other requirements will there be? Directed parking spaces? What, can you give us some idea of
I
what
think so.
might improve compliance by the riders?
Don't have yourself on me.
But
I
that's
think let's get a wish
feedback,
list.
right? That's feedback from you, Kevin, that
Right, they
Yeah.
want more fun.
higher fines, more.
Better
What do you want?
I thought he was saying that the contract was ready and it's in the attorney's office waiting for.
No, they had the draft, not quite, no.
Okay.
I need to hear back from them. So they might say, yeah, you're good to go. They might say, no, we need to tweak X, Y, and Z.
Okay, are the fines the same?
So I think are the fines the same? I don't know yet.
Okay.
But I'm hearing
You also
you
say
provide
you
that
want
feedback
Yeah,
and
and requirements around parking.
right.
I mean, if we fine people $500 for parking in the disabled parking space, why not fine VO $500 for allowing their riders to block a curb ramp? The curb ramps are critical. People have died because of missing curb ramps in Charlottesville. And so that's definitely a suggestion, make the fines hurt.
I think the balance there is if you make stuff too, they'll just leave. And it is it's not necessary, but it is a useful thing to have them in the city. They provide a service, it is hundreds of thousands of rides.
Yes, but the blocked ramps
I don't
are a
disagree.
critical issue.
I do not disagree with you, and we need to find a way to address it. I'm just saying, raising fines to a point that they're like, we're out, like, and any other person is out, like, even the contracts that we've had in the past, that was why Bird left and that was why, Line left, like, so, you know, I don't disagree with you, but we can't just be like, all right, $10,000 if you park in the,
Right.
on the curb.
What about directed parking? I'd like to request that there be more directed parking, fourth parking, VEO likes to call it, but directed parking, especially around the corner in the downtown area.
Got it.
Do you have any sense, Tommy, of if that whole, like geolocation enabled program for parking to determine like, oh no, this is not a place where you can leave this scooter? If that's gonna be.
Is the forced parking working well? Is that what your question?
Well, I know there was like, they were gonna like roll out some AI enabled thing that never happened to kind of try to reduce people parking in places that were just wildly unacceptable.
Yeah.
Is there any update there on like the status of that technology?
They are working on fixing some bugs.
Okay, so it's,
I'm not holding my breath when
Yeah.
it comes to the AI
Yeah.
stuff. I never was.
Yeah.
But what I will say is that from our conversations with the folks at UVA, that the forced parking is not going perfectly as well. It might help, and hopefully they can get the science down to the technology to be a little bit more accurate, but right now the the technology is just, the geofence is just way too wide to really force people into a specific hub or corral, if you want. Albert.
I just wanna, we had this, we tried like back in December to have a city county conversation about VO, we just wanna do it again. If once your stuff is ready, I guess. I know back then, Ben was like, not a good time right now, come back once you get bigger. But just wanna.
Yeah, and while I'm thinking about it, unrelated, let's talk about BPAC in general at some point. Yes, let's have a conversation. I don't know if everyone saw in my staff updates, but they're removing 130 some odd vehicles off the roads next week to reduce their fleet in Charlottesville. So there's gonna be 580-ish vehicles in Charlottesville.
bicycle scooters.
Correct.
Is that just over the summer?
Correct. So their permit currently allows up to like 750.
This is not a permit related request, but I would love to see, like, if there's to be more dedicated bike and scooter parking, that it be done in conjunction with daylighting intersections and crosswalks and bike parking, like putting bike racks. I think part of the challenge is a lot of those hubs get parked in by people who are live parking or whatever, but if you had a couple staple racks on either end, people wouldn't be able to park there. Even if nobody's locked to those racks. And I know that oftentimes in the mind of a scooter rider, it seems like, or a Vail bike rider, even though you're not locking them to a rack, it feels intuitive to park them there because those are for bikes.
Yeah, I think Natalie brought this up a while ago, and I totally agree. I think Brendan, since you're in this room right now, I'll remind myself to follow up with you. We had identified several of these type of locations a couple years ago. So let's follow up at some point, you and Caleb and I, about maybe using the locations that we had already identified and maybe identifying a few more.
Okay.
At some point.
Yeah, like also where those can function as bump outs.
That was what we had kind of identified.
Great.
Like the one right over here, actually.
Yeah, 'cause then
works in that
yeah.
capacity.
Yeah, it just feels like a much better use of our bike. But
I would say at that time, and this is what I said before, that my thought process was to not put infrastructure in those hubs. And that they would be constantly full of VOs, but then when they're not, they don't act really like a bump out.
Exactly.
Right, so.
They're not serving any other.
But if there
purpose.
was like some sort of like bike rack or bike
Yeah.
infrastructure.
Stack the functions.
Yeah. I think there's some promise there.
Awesome.
And related to that, but not related to the permit, which is why I wasn't bringing it up again, is that Docus Mobility Hub is worth.
Oh,
it.
God.
I know it's your
We won't
favorite
do it
comment.
again.
But just a picture of a scooter and a picture of a bike.
I think maybe, or we could maybe just move forward with just an orange block and say the orange blocks. No? All right, we can
Picture,
figure it out
picture.
later. Okay, all right.
Just a silhouette.
I didn't come up with the name.
I know.
Anyhow.
Did any outreach or programming that
It's a
makes
good
it cheaper?
question.
Yes.
Yeah, they do. It's called the Access Program. Social Services is aware of it and they tell their clients it's not used as well as I would like it to be used. It's a great program and more people should promote it.
Veo doesn't do a huge promotion for it.
So maybe if some feedback from me would be.
Right.
Yeah.
Or
Or
just
put
put
that in
that
a
more
contract.
easily accessible on their website.
Yeah.
Are they currently required to? Make them more required.
Or
Have that be the landing page. Instead of
Yeah.
having to dig for it.
Or have them put some signage up or put them on, on the vehicles themselves, like,
And the app.
yeah. You can do it.
Yeah, we're on the same page here.
Tommy,
Yeah.
I'm confused. I thought that VO riders, had to take a photograph of their scooter. So what happens when they take a photograph of one and it's, completely blocking the sidewalk or laying across the curb?
Yeah, so from what I've gathered is that, let's say you end your ride and you take a photo up here
Yeah.
of the sky. You end your ride
I see.
and then unless there's someone who reports it as blocking access, they don't go back in to
Right.
confirm that end ride photo
Matches.
Right.
with, so that's what they're hoping the AI would fix, and it wouldn't allow you to take a photo up here. It would force you to take a photo of the scooter where it's at.
I understand. And then one other thing, and that is, I'd like you to consider for the contract, requiring VO to, block scooter riders after a first violation, block them for 2 weeks. Just something after the first violation, because, you gotta get their attention.
So, that's good feedback. I would say another thing I've learned, and I think I've learned a lot on how the program works, is that I don't know, I'm still trying to figure this out, but I think to some extent users are able to get a new account via a new phone in that folks who have been removed from the system are able to still use the system via
VPN or something.
yeah. So
I've seen people with them on the downtown mall. I thought that was, there was a geofence around the mall.
there is a geofence, but some people have figured out how to disconnect and or they will force they'll power through and force the
Cause it doesn't
video.
stop it, it just reduces the power to minimal.
Oh.
We
And
need like an electric shock.
like, put yourself in the mind of a
Yeah.
video writer, right? You're acting like they're Russian hackers who are like, "Moo, ha, 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 ha." It's a kid who's like on a scooter and they're like, I'm here and I wanna be over there and it's downhill, so like, I'm gonna power it through, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, it's well, go ahead.
Oh, well, I was gonna table the conversation
yeah.
and just ask folks that if you have additional comments for Tommy to just email him.
Yep.
Because we are coming to time. Announcements, other business.
Can I do a quick builds update?
Yeah.
You can,
We didn't do a round of applause for quick builds.
We're roughly a third of the way through already of the 30 some that the council hasn't actually, did they finally? But we're moving forward on those. The next ones that will be installed will be some of the speed tables. So they already did the one on Langford. I don't know if that got announced at council or not.
No, but we got some feedback about it already.
Okay. Good or bad?
There might be a piece missing.
It's been installed. They ran out of material when they went out there to install them. So like it got 2/3 installed and then the rest of it's done.
Okay, I can forward you the email.
Okay, that's fine. But they're doing next, probably tomorrow, they'll be working on all of those roads that connect between Monticello and Avon, other than Elliott. So all those kind of steep ones.
I know.
So that should start tomorrow. I don't know if they'll get all those done tomorrow, but those will be the next ones on the list. So,
Can you tell me why Naylor and Harris isn't on the list?
Naylor and
that's the one you talked about.
Curb ramps there.
You talking about the crosswalk?
Yeah.
The painted crosswalk?
Yeah,
No,
that's
I
good.
looked into that, I saw your My Seagull comment just before this meeting about it, and I looked into it. And that's on the safe routes, like crosswalks to be painted list. And I went into the public works system that shows what's been completed and what hasn't been completed, and basically their work order system. And there's a discrepancy. It says that it's completed, but it is not. So I need to get.
Thank
on
you.
those, yeah.
Thanks, Scott.
yeah, a lot of, I mean, there's the list of 34. There's another list of 33 that we're working on through other funding sources, and then there was really another 30 some plus more that we had kind of
plus.
identified. So like, I mean, there's a lot of locations. We're trying to address the ones that have the most impact as part of these quick builds and that we know we can get done, before the end of the year. So that's kind of why. And then a lot of the striping stuff was not on there because that's being done through either Safe Routes or Ben's neighborhood transportation funds and that kind of stuff. So most of these quick builds are actual building things.
But all the stuff getting built is on the Quick Builds website now.
Yes.
And it identifies where that funding is coming from
Right.
on that website or webpage. So if anyone's interested, they can look at all of that. But yeah,
Quick question about that. Can there be a completion column?
We talked about that. Yeah,
So they're saying
we talked, we just met Tuesday, I think. Was it
Zoe's
Tuesday?
shaking her head, yes. Monday.
Monday?
This week.
It's been this week.
Yeah.
About getting that up there. So part of it is like they're kind of running that website and our staff is installing them as quickly as they can. So there's, but we will try and even if it's after the fact, we'll try and keep that updated. So yes.
And that would be cool for folks to see.
Two-part question. Do you know when you're getting to Rose Hill? Just to give people a heads up.
For the roundabout,
There's a bunch of stuff happening. in
roundabouts.
Brazil.
Oh, yeah, no.
There's a lot, there's speed tables, there's. a lot
The
of-
speed tables aren't on Rose Hill. There's speed tables
Well,
around the
sorry,
one,
they're in the neighborhood.
in the
Yeah,
neighborhood.
Yeah, not
I think
enough.
we have 5 on the list. 5 or
Yeah,
6.
and so those will probably be done on the next round after the Monticello Avon grouping.
I just asked because we were gonna do a walk with Sive in mid-July, but could they be done by then?
I don't know. We had the great idea to put them in, and then when we started designing it, it may be a bigger construction project just because of where the ADA ramps and the current crosswalks and stuff are at, like. We can put it in a circle, but then your crosswalk is basically through the travel lane, so we have to kind of black out, so it's just we're still hoping to get it done, but it's probably gonna be towards the end of the year rather than at the
Slightly
beginning.
less quick though.
Yes, yeah, it's, we're trying to knock out the ones that.
That's a
we
new
can-
website.
That we can do, you know, kind of first, so we're going back and looking at how we can tweak that, to minimize, you know, the restriping and stuff that might have to happen there, but yeah, that's the goal right now. So I don't have a specific timeline for it.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I was just trying to get a general idea, and so we have our timeline.
Yeah.
And I can check back with you too.
Yeah.
The other question was, with maybe Tommy, you're the person to talk about it, the feedback loop. Like, how do you guys envision that working? Like when citizens say, we hate flex post,
Right, they really need flex posts.
what happens next?
Yeah.
So,
Ask for concrete.
so part of the discussion all along, and if you look at Ben's like presentations to council, it has been not only like identifying what projects we can put out there with paint and plastic, but also doing like an inventory and like assessment of the projects and what we can turn into like concrete permanent projects moving forward. So
Yeah.
there is a like reviewing process of all of these projects. So some of them, we just need to like keep our eye on them and, you know, keep reviewing them because hopefully they turn into something more than just plastic.
And we're trying to parse through and, you know, is it the visual aspect of the flex post that they have the problem with? Or is it the physical, like, orientation?
Yeah.
That, because I've had a lot of people, you know, the oak leaf, green leaf one in particular, where the problem isn't necessarily the design of it, it's just that it's ugly. And it's like,
Yeah, there is some ugly.
Yeah, right.
There's also some people were talking about at night,
Distracting.
being a little confused, I think. Yeah.
Did they slow down?
Sometimes confusion is.
Yeah.
I said that, they didn't like that. But these were older drivers as well.
I want to make a suggestion for the feedback, maybe instead of just a general, hey, what do you think about this? It's a guided.
Oh, yeah,
feedback,
the
like,
form, I think, needs to be
Okay.
very
yeah,
specific.
what, you know,
what do you like, what do you not
do
like?
you want this to become concrete? Yes, you know, like.
So that was part of my question, was can I say with the flex post, like, this might be a step towards.
I think you can say it
Someone
might be a
mentioned the
step,
different
those
materials.
words,
Might.
that and might are really important, they're doing a lot of work in that sentence.
I just wanted to.
And again, I go back to drainage, you know, we're gonna run into those type of issues,
Right.
turning, going from paint and plastic to like
For
concrete.
sure, for sure.
But yeah, I mean, I think that like the more we can support these type of projects, like we've shown this to be like a good process. Like some of the stuff that Kyle has identified over the years is turning to concrete and like it's working.
Yes.
So let's continue that.
We are 4 minutes over our time. I just want to acknowledge that if anyone needs to go.
I have
we
two
can-
announcements,
we
real
can- oh,
quick.
Okay, okay, go ahead, Tom.
Well, I just want to say real quick, Bike Month was awesome and there's opportunity to continue some of this stuff. Number one, bike valet. I have a partnership with the city police to allow us to continue the bike valet. So that means that I don't have to be here every Friday. So if people wanted to volunteer for Fridays after 5, then we can continue that. We can talk about that later, but we have that ability to do that. Number 2, Ben is going to be at City Market on Saturday at 9 o'clock doing a quiet route. So if people wanted to continue the Saturday morning bike rides, we could look into continue to do that. Ben is going to be there on Saturday.
Great. One very important announcement about July's feedback meeting, it falls on July 3rd. I know staff have already let us know that they will probably not be in the office. So we may want to decide that we either don't have a July BPAC meeting, or we turn July's BPAC meeting into a quiet ride, or into a neighborhood walk, or just a social, and not really conduct any business, but just take the opportunity. If you're already holding this time on your calendar to just kind of hang out.
Sounds like it should be at the pool with everyone who
At
made
the pool, I
summer.
know, yeah, James and
Summer.
yeah. So, and does anyone have like, the show of hands maybe, like, oh yeah, I'm not here in July 4th weekend?
I'm not here until.
Yeah, heck yeah, okay, good for y'all. Getting out of town is also a theme. All right, so maybe we'll just, James and I'll make a call.
Show of hands, who would be here if we had a regular meeting or a walkabout meeting?
Okay. Well, yeah, maybe we'll just
Thank you.
reconsider. Okay, that'll do it.
Quick question, or quick announcement, VDOT and PDC have posted a couple of surveys that I can forward to BPAC. One is Fifth Street between Harris and Pinehurst, and one is on 29. Just listening feedback about like, what do you use this for? What would you like to see? And it includes like some of the options are biped stuff. So I'll send it out so that people can take a look if they want, and then forward it on to anyone else who might have.
Are you talking about these two on the staff updates?
Oh, maybe.
Yeah.
Anything for next meeting?
Yeah, look at that. Thanks.
If there are comments, if
We'll
you have
follow
comments,
those
if you
out.
have questions about those, direct them to either Taylor, UPDC, or me for county stuff.
Yeah, anything for the, maybe perhaps August agenda?
Look at that. They're right there.
All right, we'll follow up. Thanks, y'all. Motion to
Thanks.
adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Yeah.
Go with peace.
All right.